Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to All Praise Picks. Today we're looking at the WNBA. We got the Indiana Fever playing against the Atlanta Dream in Atlanta on June 21st, 2024. Currently, the Fever are 6-10, which is fourth in the Eastern Conference, and the Dream are 6-7, which is third in the Eastern Conference. So the Fever have played a few more games than the Dream, but they are pretty close in the standings. Just a little background about how they've been playing lately. The Fever have had 3 straight wins, all at home. But for the Dream, their last 4 games, they've gone 1-3, and are just returning home now from a road trip to Minnesota, where they lost pretty badly. So I do expect the Dream to bounce back in this game, and I do think it'll be a good game overall, offensively for both teams. But I got 2 parlays for you guys on BetMGM. As always, I'll break down the lines, give you my thoughts, and if you tap in, hopefully we can all win. So this is the first parlay at plus 130. It's a 7-leg parlay. As I mentioned before, I do think that the Dream will bounce back in this game, and I have them at covering a 12.5 spread, essentially not to lose this game by more than 13 points. So even though the Fever have been playing well lately, their last 3 wins have been all at home, and they've all been close games against teams that are honestly not as good as the Atlanta Dream. I will mention that the Dream will be without Ryan Howard in this game, who's honestly one of their best players. But I still think that they could keep this game competitive and could possibly win at home. The Fever are ranked in the bottom 3 in defense at 9th overall, and they haven't played spectacular defense, especially on the road this season. On the other side of that, the Dream are still a top 5 defense team in the league, and I think that their defense will be easier to come by in this game with the home crowd cheering them on. So I do like them to have a good chance of covering the 12.5 point spread. When it comes to the next line on the parlay, I do think that the combined score of this game will be over 152.5 points. As I mentioned before, both offenses should play well in this game, and in the 2 games that they've played already this season, the Fever won both of them, albeit in Indianapolis, but the Fever won the first game 83-80, and the second game 91-84. So both of the offenses played very well in the game, and the games were pretty close. So I do expect this game in Atlanta to go over 153 points. The next line I have is for Tina Charles to get more than 5 rebounds. On the season, she's averaging 12.6 points and 9.1 rebounds for the Dream, and she's gone over 5 rebounds in her last 9 games, and in both of the games versus the Fever this season. So I do think without Howard playing in this game, she should have an added role, and Howard averages around 4.5 rebounds per game. So I do think that Charles should be able to get over 5, as she has in the last 2 games versus the Fever. Now looking at Alicia Gray to get over 15 combined points, rebounds, and assists. I do think, similar to Charles, she'll have an added role with Howard out of this game, and I think that she'll be more focused on scoring in this game, as she and Tina Charles can run the offense through the pick and roll and just their post. But I do think she should reach above her averages for the season. She's averaged 15.2 points and around 2 assists and 2 rebounds per game. And I think that she has a higher assist potential in this game, as the Fever will try to force the ball out of her hands. But the Fever, honestly, are still a poor defensive team, so I think that she'll be able to get her points and her assists regardless through free throw attempts and 3-point opportunities in regards to her points. And then the assists should come throughout the game as the Fever try to double team her and get the ball out of her hands. But I do think that she's a good bet to get 15-plus points, rebounds, and assists. The next line is for Kelsey Mitchell, who plays for the Fever, to get over 12 points. So far this season, she's averaged 15.9 points, and outside of Leah Boston, I think that she's been the most consistent scorer for the Fever. She's had over 12 points in 13 of her last 14 games, and she can score from all over the floor. And I think that defensives have been focused more on Caitlin Clark, especially in the beginning of the season, which gave Mitchell more scoring opportunities on weaker defenders, and I think that'll continue in this game. In the last game versus the Dream, she scored 24 points, and I think that she should be a great scoring option in this game still, and should be able to get at least 12 points. The next line I have is for Caitlin Clark to get over 15-plus points and assists. And Clark has been playing much better lately, especially comparatively to the beginning of her season. And she's been mainly doing so through facilitating the offense and taking open shots when they come to her. I think that she should have a good chance of getting over 15-plus points and assists in this game. And she's gone over this mark in 13 out of 16 games and has had over 20-plus points and assists in her last 2 games. Looking at her stats as well for the entire season, she's had a slight increase in scoring and assist in the games on the road, and I think the Fever's offense has really found a way to best feature Clark alongside her teammates like Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, which has really eased the offense, and they've been the number 2 offense in the last 5 games. So I do think that that's because of Caitlin Clark and in part because of how she's facilitated the offense as a whole. The last line I have in the parlay is for Aaliyah Boston to get over 5 rebounds. She's averaged 12.9 points and 7.9 rebounds this season, and she's gone over 5 rebounds in 13 out of her last 16 games this season, including 10 out of the last 11 games. And I think that Boston and Smith are the leading rebounders on the team, but I think Boston will be more likely to clear this mark of 5+ rebounds if she plays her usual 30 minutes per game, which I think is likely if the game is going to be close going into the fourth quarter. So that's the first parlay at plus 130. If you put 1 unit on the parlay, you get 130% return on your investment, which is more than double, and that is always great. But I would just advise you guys to have financial consciousness and an overall just understanding of how much you're putting into each of these parlays when making your decisions. So this is the next parlay that I have at plus 188. In the first line, I have each team scoring over 72 points. As I mentioned before, in both games versus the Fever this season, both teams have gone over this mark. But the games were played in Indianapolis, so I do think that scoring would favor Atlanta in this game. But in those 2 games, the Fever won both of them, winning the first one 83-80, and the second one 91-84. So both teams scored over 72 points. And I think that the same will be true in this game. I mentioned the Dream being favored in this game too, with covering the 12.5 point spread, but I have them at 10.5 in this parlay. I also have Nalisa Smith to get over 4 rebounds. On the season, she's averaging 11.2 points and 6.9 rebounds per game, and she's gone over 4 rebounds in 14 out of her last 16 games, including 9 out of her last 10. She does play less minutes than Aaliyah Boston on average, getting about 25 minutes compared to 30 for Boston. But I do think that she can easily get over 4 rebounds, and she's shown that she's been able to do that in her last 10 games. So I do think that she can continue to do so in this game. I also have Boston scoring over 10 points in this game. She's gone over 10 points in 11 out of her last 13 games, and she's averaged 23 points in her last 3 games as her offense is really coming to form with Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell helping her get easy looks. So I do think that she should be able to score at least 10 points in this game. And in the last game versus Atlanta, she scored 27 points. So I do think that she could easily get over 10 in this game. I did talk about Kelsey Mitchell, and I do want to mention that she is the more consistent scoring option on the team. So I do think that having 12+ points in both of the parlays is an overall safe bet in this one. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark getting over 4 assists, she's gone over this mark in 13 out of her last 15 games, and she's averaged 6.2 assists per game this season. And as I talked about before, she does have a slight increase in her assist potential and number of assists in the games on the road. So I do think that the Fever's offense will be facilitated through her, and that she'll be able to pass the ball to Boston and Mitchell in order to get them their points. So I do think that she's a good bet to get over 4 assists in this game. And the last leg I have in this parlay is for Tina Charles to score over 8 points. On the season, she's averaged 12.6 points and 9.1 rebounds. And she's gone over 8 points in 8 out of 13 games this season, and in 5 out of her last 7 games. So I do think that she'll have an added role without Ryan Howard, which I mentioned before. And Ryan Howard, she averages 15.4 points a game this season. So I do think that Charles as well as Gray will have more scoring opportunities, but I do trust Charles more as a veteran to get her points in this game. So at plus 188, if you put 1 unit on this parlay, you get just under 200% return on your investment, and that is clearly great, and I do hope that this parlay wins, and hopefully if you guys tap in, we can all win together. But if you do choose to bet this parlay with me, I just advise you guys to have financial consciousness and an overall awareness of how much you're putting down on each of these parlays so that you just have an understanding of the risk involved. But As always, thanks you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more WNBA and MLB videos coming out later this week. And until next time, peace.